So with that, I'll say, we talked about baking a cake and having all the ingredients. And if you put all of these ingredients together, your objective setting, your right partners that are experts, having your business cases and your infrastructure up front, developing your strategy from an acquisition standpoint all the way through to engagement, and then measuring and assessing in an ongoing, iterative fashion, learning from patients, you will be able to have your cake and eat it too. And I will say that in closing, I'm here with a partner from Target Base today who gave me some very wise advice. His name is Brian Kaiser. And what he said was the magic in what you are doing is in how it integrates under a vision of synthesizing customer knowledge to outsmart in execution rather than outspend. But to outsmart in execution means out-hustling in the preparation stage. You must give your assessment and learning plans a great deal of forethought, whereas most brands approach this as an afterthought. So with that, thank you for listening not only to me, but to your patients. Thank you very much.
Tweet stream running live, so if you do have questions, feel free to post. We've got hashtag EFP, so any questions you have, feel free to put them up there. But we do have a handheld mic, so from the audience, let's take some questions. I think we have one up at the front.
For CommuniSpace, I don't know how much you can share, Pat, but can you share on the pharmacovigilance and from what you anticipated, maybe adverse events reporting and what really happened in the reality? Because we also had a CommuniSpace program live, and they're wonderful. I can speak well about them, but there were challenges with the adverse event reporting, the reality versus perception.
That's a great question. And we have been very fortunate because CommuniSpace actually has a fully moderated community. And so there are individuals looking at that community on an ongoing basis, interacting with patients. We have had a few adverse events reported, as you would anticipate. But we also did a lot of work up front to clearly define what the community's goals and objectives were. And we spelled out up front that this was not about using this to communicate about adverse events, and that if you were having any experiences, you really needed to talk to your doctor. So it's important to make sure that up front you clearly define for the community what the goals of that community are. These individuals actually know that UCB is sponsoring this community, so we are very open and transparent with them, but we also, in that open, transparent environment, make sure that we clearly define for them what we need back in return and kind of what the rules are of engagement. Great question. Any other questions? Yes?
Question on adverse events. Did you find through the community that the propensity to report adverse events was higher than it was in the offline space, or pretty much the same?
Actually, surprisingly, it was lower. And I think that's because we defined up front what we were looking for. We've seen a few, so I won't say that we haven't seen any, but no more than what we normally see as a part of any adverse events reporting structure.
Any other questions from the floor? Okay, Pat, I do have one question for you. You've talked a lot about financial business cases being that grounding and a key ingredient for success. For the audience, what advice would you give them, if they haven't had the history in doing that, to go down that path? What advice would you give them to start building out those cases?
Well, I hope I don't sound like a commercial, because that's not my intent at all. But we work with a relationship marketing agency, Target Base. It is important to work with an agency partner that really understands and has the data-driven ability, the knowledge to synthesize all of the learnings and pull them through all of the communication channels, and has a basis, in other words, a history that they're able to know what the appropriate engagement levels are across tactics and across media channels. So it's really important to make sure that you have that relationship and that partner in place.
Great.